I've learned a lot from situations that I wish had never happened. I think the first thing that you end up learning is that you could be in any time zone, but chances are that you may take up the call and say good morning, because the other person could be in a very different time zone.
Right.
One thing that I did fail repeatedly, almost all my life, and now I've learned from it.
Welcome to another episode of the Coala Studio podcast. We're so happy to have you here. And I cannot wait to get the conversation started. But before we do you want to give us an elevator pitch of who you are, what you do, explain to our audience why you're here, and let's get it going.
Thank you, Ronak. I've heard a lot about what you guys do, and I feel must have done something right to finally made the cut. So at Remittor, all that we try to do is help people get their wealth out of India, and those people are either NRIs or people of Indian origin, and it's like an open secret. Sending money or investing in India is simple, but getting it out or getting it back is really difficult, and we're trying to solve that problem on a daily basis.
How long has Remittor been in the market? What's the rundown so far?
So this is one of those businesses where the product is still evolving, where the services started even before the brand came into being. Technically speaking, if you ask us how old is the company, I would say 1.5 years old. The work started long before that. We've been in the market for the last 3.5 years, figuring out, understanding the market and everything. So, and I still feel that we are in the phase one, where a lot of learning, a lot of growth, and a lot of product evolution as well. So, yeah, I would say 3 years.
3 years, okay. And speaking of the history behind the inception of Remittor, I was obviously going through your profile, and you've got a journalism background,
Right.
which stood out to me. It's interesting that someone in such a different, and I take it you weren't a finance journalist, right? Or were you?
I was always interested, and I was a business journalist.
Okay.
And I always had interest in finance, but that was a personal interest as well. But I get what you're saying. People do not expect, even journalists do not expect themselves, they don't see themselves as entrepreneurs many a times. I don't agree with that notion, because how it helped me and how it helps me even today is that I think journalism teaches you how to ask the right questions. And it does not scare you from asking those questions. You do not enter the room, and when I meet a lot of people who either want to get into business or they are doing something of their own, a lot of people enter the room thinking that they already know it. But as a journalist, I walk into a room thinking that I don't know, I want to know. You ask the right questions, and I've realized that many a times if you know how to ask the right question, people are more than happy to share the knowledge that they have. And then you know what to pick from there, and other aspects or other skills that I've picked up over the years, come into the being. But I think journalism or everything that I've done in my life came together for Remittor.
Right. I think inherent curiosity also
Of course.
drives entrepreneurship, and in my personal opinion is one of the core features of a good entrepreneur as well. Like if you're not curious about things, then you're obviously not going to try and go out there and find the answers to pain points, or be able to figure out solutions to pain points that people or your target audience may or may not have.
I think the point that to look beyond the obvious, right? Because there's always that pursuit, at least I have it. Are we trying to solve a problem that other people don't see? Because at the end of the day, even as an entrepreneur, you're trying to solve problems that people already have.
Right.
But to identify what that problem is that you want to solve, there's a process to it.
Correct.
To look beyond the obvious is something that journalism helps.
Financial services or anything to do with finance, regulatory bodies is usually something that one does not particularly pursue unless they have a strong hold of that particular niche, or unless they have experience working in that industry. So I'd love to kind of understand how the transition happened. Basically, what you've been doing for the last 10, 15 years that has kind of led you.
To the question that you asked, I would want to agree and disagree at the same time. Yes, you need to have, I believe, for any given opportunity. Otherwise, if you end up doing only what you already know and you've excelled at it, chances are that most people, if you're good at something, you end up working for a bigger organization. And you look at it from the vantage point that you have is of what you've already done. Many times when you are the outsider, you look at it differently and you have the capability of zooming in and zooming out and looking at the larger picture as well. And that is the advantage that I had. I did understand, finance, personal finance for sure. Once I moved to Canada, I did become a qualified financial planner.
Right.
That education really helped. Meeting a lot of people helped, and asking the right questions helped. All of that came together. But I think the genesis of it actually would start. I even became a professional, with a job or anything. So I don't know whether this is how you would want me to answer, but I think now, when I look back, the journey of Remittor started maybe around 40 years ago.
Okay.
Malayali kid, born, brought up, and spoilt in Delhi. In the late 80s and 90s, a lot of people may know that Malayalis are largely an immigrant population. Like, as soon as you're 18, you're expected to leave
Right.
the state and go to Middle East, Dubai.
Yeah, I grew up there, so.
Right. So,
yeah.
but I did feel like an immigrant growing up in Delhi as well. Although we were in the same country,
Sure.
but back in the day, I was always an outsider. Although I was born in the city and I was growing up with people who were just like me, but I was always treated as an outsider. How you're labeled as a Madrasi. They didn't know how to spot Kerala on the map.
Yeah.
Anything south of Vindhyas was Madrasi. So growing up as an outsider, you knew the challenges of, what does it mean? I do see a lot of people from Delhi, when they move from the native city, when they move to another country, for them it's a challenge that they were never prepared for. Because they feel this is their home ground, like the city that they were born in, and this is the first change ever happening. But for me, the transition was much easier because I felt that as if something like this has already happened, and I did make a life out of that.
Right.
There was an empathetic point of view of what an immigrant goes through, right? I saw the challenges that my family faced, my parents faced, restarting their life in a city where they don't know anyone, a language they never were comfortable with.
Yeah.
Education that people didn't really care about, because back in the day, whatever that you did in Kerala would not really account for in the north. Or I'm sure it happens the other way around as well.
Of course.
But I saw that firsthand. And then when we moved here, I saw the same set of challenges, but with a much larger audience, right? And I knew that all of this is, tying together. Both my personal journey and my professional journey have come together and has helped us shape what Remittor is today.
Now that you actually put it that way, I feel like my life has a lot of similarities as well, because I spent the first 10 years of my life in Mumbai, the next 10 years in the UAE, and then the last 10, 11 years in Canada.
Right.
I felt like, although I was really young when I moved here, that transition was easier for me than for others, because I'd already spent the previous 10 years in a different country,
Right.
outside of home, trying to sort of, fit in
Right.
with people and within communities, whatnot. Now that you've actually brought that point up, it just...
I don't want to make it sound emotional, but the fact is that when you know that you're the outsider, you know that you need to try harder. You will not have the same set of privileges that a lot of other people would have. You need to prove yourself, a lot more. You need to put in double the effort to justify that you do deserve the spot on, in the same room, and that your voice should be heard. You don't enter a room being an entitled person.
Correct.
Right. Professionally, I had experiences that were showing me, say for example, the wealth transfer as a phenomena. I experienced or I witnessed it even before moving to Canada. My last stint in India was as a public, I was in public affairs. I was working with some of the top corporate houses and political families and family offices. And I could see, I was a witness to how the super HNIs in India were transferring their wealth out of India for various reasons, economic, social, political, or whatever that. But I saw that even them, those families were struggling, but solutions were being customized for them. How efficient, I wouldn't go there, but they had access to that. And then about 10 years ago, great Indian middle class migration started in India. People from and middle class in India is sizable. You have various segments within that. In India, I would say it has been a top-down movement when it comes to immigration. And then I realized that a lot of these people do not have access to the same set of solutions that the super HNIs have. They neither had the advisory, the professional advisory, the convenience, or even something as essential or basic as trust. They didn't know who to trust. So that played a role. And then when I moved here, became a banker as a financial planner.
That was just in Scotiabank.
Right. So, so that is something like all of that added up.
Amazing. It's been a journey then.
Yeah, it's been a journey. And it's been a journey that, many a times I didn't realize that the experiences that I'm gathering at that given point in time, it used to feel a lot more painful. But now I'm like, I am so grateful. So grateful for all the great opportunities and even the bad ones. I've learned a lot from situations that I wish had never happened.
I think this is a common factor amongst most entrepreneurs that I speak to or that we've had on the show as well. There's always gratitude for the experience, good or bad, good, bad, ugly. There's always definitely gratitude for it because it has in some way, form or shape their perception of the world, their understanding of their target audience, and their determination to solve problems for their target audience.
Right.
Speaking of which, Remittor currently operates in Canada and the US, and you have plans of expansion to Australia, New Zealand, basically everywhere where you see a high percentage of the Indian diaspora is residents or people of Indian origin, right? And Canada was the market that you started with, right?
We did.
From what I hear and from my personal experience, the target audience or the niche that you're working with, actually both the niche financial services and the target audience, one of the most challenging to work with, whether you consider it individually or whether you can and of course if you consider it as a combo, right? And I've also spoken to you about it, and you seem to take this very differently than other entrepreneurs that I've chatted with about this topic. So anytime I've asked you about your target audience, you've always been very jolly about it. You've always had only positives to say. But most entrepreneurs that I've asked have always said that the Indian market or the NRI market is a very price sensitive and challenging market or challenging audience to work with. What makes you different? Why is your experience quite different from what the rest of the market perceives it as? And today, if I were to start a business that caters to the NRI market, what are some of the things that you think would help me work better with an NRI audience?
I love the market. I love the people that we work with. At a time when people were leaving Facebook, I'm on Facebook right now because most of our clients have become an extension of my friend circle.
Sure.
Now I don't know where does half or 2/3 of my Facebook friends are now my clients. We get invited to their kids' birthday parties and housewarming, and that's the kind of relationship that we have, and I love them to the bits. But I'll tell you why. I have heard a lot of fellow entrepreneurs, I would say, struggle with the Indian community. So now if I think about it, why is it our experience different? It's because fundamentally we did not go to the market with a product. I feel one error that people at times make is that they sit in a room, a bunch of people, they sit in a room and think, okay, so what product should we come up with? Who are we helping and everything? And they design the product and maybe even engineer the product, or many a times over-engineer it, spend a lot of resources there. And then they go out to the market looking for the target customer. We do have a lot of discussion, and I've had discussion with fellow fintech entrepreneurs, not just in North America, but also in India. India is an amazing fintech market
Absolutely.
ecosystem, right? I've spoken to them and I've realized that until they go out to the market, their target audience is a number or a data on a whiteboard. The real consumer speak happens much later in the product development. For us, it's been the other way around. We went out to the market understanding what are the challenges that our community faces when it comes to their personal finance, especially between cross-border personal finance between India and Canada or US, wherever they are. Once we understood that the pain points, all that we tried to do was solve those pain points. I think we've been pretty successful in identifying a problem, understanding it, reverse engineering it, then bringing the solutions, putting it together, then making a product out of it, and then making the brand. The brand therefore happened much later in the life cycle. So what happened is that our product by default was responding to a pain point that the customer is already facing or is aware of. So when we went back to the same customer or similar customer base, we were talking their language. We were talking about the pain points. I was not talking about, we never spoke about what are we good at. We started off saying, these are the problems that we try and solve. Or the way we, would talk about those issues. And our in-depth knowledge and understanding of those problems is what got people to know that we are thinking of them. We are thinking for them. And our solutions are catered around the people that we are. We got an extremely warm reception because I think when you take this approach, you have a ready market available because you're already talking about the problems that people are facing. I think as an entrepreneur, one of the great learnings that I've had is that instead of thinking what business do I want to get into, I think it does help if you start off saying what is the problem that I want to solve. So you need to speak to your customer first because they would tell both the opportunities that you as an entrepreneur want to target as well as the solution that you're looking for.
Right. So if I understand this correctly, you went out to the market with the idea to solve a problem based on the pain points of the customer that you understood. But you didn't have a productized product.
Exactly.
Let's take another company like Remittor, for example, right? Remittor allows you to send money overseas, right, to multiple countries. They're a large organization and they are also at this point targeting NRIs and people of Indian origin overseas. The difference between your approach and theirs is they have an app or a product and now they're looking to fit people who would benefit from their product into their customer acquisition funnels, right? Versus what's worked for you so far, or what I understand of it, is you know the pain points, you are well versed with the solution, you're starting conversations with clients or prospects and letting them know that, okay, these are the pain points, this is how this can be done. And based on the number of pain points or the different types of pain points that your customers have, you're kind of tailoring the service.
Right.
So it's like a bespoke suit versus off the shelf, or am I getting that right? Or
yes. So Remittor is a wonderful business.
Of course.
And they're very good at what they do. They are among the best, if not the very best.
I think at some point every NRI has used their services, right?
Of course. And I kind of agree with, the way you've summarized it is that they have a solution. They have one solution, which is we can help you transfer wealth from A to B. And they do it very well. However, they're like one solution for everyone. We are, I would say, the other end of it, where not just in operations, size and scale, but also the way we want to approach it. We want to be all the solution for one customer. Indian population, Indian diaspora is extremely diverse, culturally, economically, socially, or professionally. And the term NRI and putting them as one target segment does not do justice to the opportunity.
Okay.
For example, things that we learned is that, let's say, social outlook of an NRI in Canada is very different from that of NRI in US.
Of course.
Right. The NRI in UK is very different from the NRI in both US or Canada because they've been there much longer.
Right.
Right. We've started talking to families in UK, where they're like the third or the fourth generation. They know that they have a piece of land in India.
But nothing about how things
How
work there.
what
Yeah.
they connect to India is still DDLJ, while the US one is very different because the NRI in US continues to invest in India. US NRIs, they are among the biggest. So just last year, India received $108 billion as inward remittance from the world, like
Right.
Indians living abroad. A major chunk of it came from US. While in Canada, as soon as an NRI comes, they're like, okay, now let's sell what we have in India and let's bring in the money to either purchase their first house or they want to do something of their own. That's not the case in US. While the NRI in Canada is very similar to the NRI in Australia and New Zealand, journey is very similar,
Right.
right? So, and then you can slice and dice it the way you want to. And then it depends which part of India they're coming from. What is their socio-economic background back in India? I think this NRI personal finance space can only be solved by the community. It can't be done by a global conglomerate because you need to have not just an economic nuance, but also a cultural nuance.
Right.
So now whether it is Remittor, which we are hoping for, or whether it will be some other form or shape of it, or whether it could be a clutch of companies trying to solve this. But the solution to this massive audience and this trend of, yes, there is an immigration pause in a lot of the Western world, but this can't be stopped.
Right.
More and more Indians are going to settle abroad.
We'll get to that in a second, but looking at ads, whatnot, right? If I were to sum it up, the maximum I've seen as a business owner and as a non-resident Indian concerned about their personal finance is TD sponsoring the Canadian cricket team. BMO just recently came up with BMO and Willow Cricket. They've recently partnered as the advertising partner for the cricket games. MLC games have now started to see investment coming in from Remittor. What's the other one?
Wise.
Is it not? I don't think it's Wise, but these companies have now started to kind of work closely with these networks to sort of push advertisements. However, and I do remember Scotiabank has been a pretty big advocate of moving your wealth over, giving NRIs and immigrants support in the form of learning and development, whatnot. None of that stuff has ever come across as enough to me from one, a marketer's perspective as well as an NRI's perspective, because it really just isn't. I mean, it's completely different from the way, Indians are used to banking. Indians think about finance as well. There's a vast difference between the way Indians and Asians in general think about money versus North Americans or Europeans, right? Why do you think there's that gap? And what can be done? If Remittor is doing anything to bridge that gap, I'd love to hear about it as well.
I think the assessment is quite accurate, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel that the problem that we are trying to solve, if I look at dispassionately, I think these problems should have already been solved by the banks. Should it have been the Canadian banks? I'm not too sure. It could have been the Indian banks as well, because they have a longer history with these same customers who are flying out or leaving India. And there's a lot more brand equity there and everything. I think there's a gap. And I think that same problem exists on both sides of the financial transaction, banks on both ends, is that they want the money. They want the customer to give them the money, rather than can we help you get that money.
Right.
We don't know how you will get it, but if somehow you manage to do it, please give it to us. We'll be happy to get it invested or do whatever that you want to do with it. I think that's the easiest problem to solve. What to do with the money once it's there in the account. We did not want to take that approach for multiple reasons, because we feel that by the time the money comes in, there are enough people going after the same pool of money.
Correct.
And on both sides. Why is it easier to send money to India than to get money out of India? Is because there are more people trying to solve this side of the problem, because everyone wants your money. They know that if you help them get money where you're living, or let's say money leaving India, that's a transaction and they will never see that money again. we don't look at transactions from that point of view. How can we make wealth transfer, easier, convenient, and more efficient? It is strange, especially from an Indian context point of view, that I feel, in a classic sense, wealth grows when it can move around freely.
Really. Yeah.
Right? And it has to be fast, it has to be efficient, and of course compliant. But that's not the case with a lot of the developing economies, and it's a global phenomenon.
Right.
People want money, but they don't want the money to leave their economy. These big institutions like banks, for them it is like, why should we try and solve that problem? It is complex and it is outside our business. Regardless of whether we try to solve it or not, somehow the customer would end up solving it, regardless of whether it takes him 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. This money is eventually going to come to us. Maybe they take it for granted.
At the cost of the customer.
The cost of the customer, or it is like, why should we solve a problem that we don't have to deal with? And these are massive institutions. And I think they're also battling 10 bigger battles. But then this is like, let someone else handle it. And in most cases, it is the customer. Maybe for them, this is not big enough market. Or maybe they haven't looked at it from everyone knows that, everyone would love to have the NRI money. But after everything is done, that is the problem that we are trying to solve.
It's typical bank behavior, right? Basically, you only want to deal with, or you only want to help even businesses for that matter, right? Once they reach a certain revenue point, and not before that. I remember just even opening bank accounts in Canada for to start a business was difficult. It could have been way easier. Yeah, even after having a relationship with the bank for about 10 years, it's really not easy.
And that is something that we've been very conscious about. And I really hope that we continue to build on that strength. And I think it is our strength. For us, it does not matter. Say, for example, if an NRI wants us to sell a property in India, it does not matter whether the property is for 25 lakhs.
Right.
For us, all these clients are extremely important, and we customize the solution as much as possible, and we make them feel as if there's nothing more important in this world for us than them.
Right.
Maybe for such institution, because they're so big, you kind of get immune to the fact that you're so used to seeing such huge number of big numbers come into your bank account and leave, and you look at it from
a very transactional perspective, yeah.
And that has helped us to not follow that path.
Right.
Because last year, 92% of our work came through referral.
This was last year,
last year.
2024.
And we're still growing. And we're growing, at a very decent number. But client referrals have been a very, very strong. We've seen, just in that vertical, we've seen a massive growth.
So just talking about that growth that you're seeing and how customer acquisition is kind of shifting, whatnot. What's the difference between what you were doing in 2024, how you were getting how people were hearing about you, reaching out to you, versus 2025? How are they hearing about you? What are you doing to acquire the customer? And I know it sounds very transactional when you say acquiring the customer, but in just pure marketing terms,
of course.
What's the funnel there?
I think the biggest difference is the fact that you need to find the right partners. Partners who believe in your story. Partners who can, and maybe this is the time where I would say that we found the right marketing agency that was also helping us with sales. Do I get to name that?
Oh, yes.
Right. So
I was hoping you're talking about us, but...
I still remember those conversations with you. Kind of kept pushing me, not from a point of view of, hire us, or Coala is the agency to go with. You pushed me to relook at the business model. I knew at that point in time that we do not want to be like the traditional brick and mortar shop. But are we a consultancy? What do we want to be? And I still remember having, those series of conversations that we had last year. You changed the way I was looking at my own business. And I'll always be grateful for that. You can see the opportunity, but you need someone to tell you that how is that possible? How is that scalable? And I was my eternal fear, bootstrapped, self-funded, revenue-funded business in the fintech space, we are very small, but at the same time, we are not just profitable, but also cash flow positive. My fear has always been we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin. Those conversations and everything that you did thereon and what your team did at Koala is to make it look that scale can happen without compromising on neither the service. How can a good product and a good service be scaled still while still keeping the personal touch intact? And that was, I think, the game changer here. And then we also started reinvesting a large part of our revenues into building those institutional support that we need. So we, not just in marketing, but in sales, the team, the operations, the tools that the team needs to have, and looking at places like risk assessment, the compliances, we doubled down on those.
Right.
And I don't know whether the conversation will go there or not, but I want to bring something
Sure.
to, especially at networking events and places where I meet other entrepreneurs. They keep asking me, "Oh, do you have?" This is one of the most often asked questions: that do you have co-founders?
Right.
Right? And technically speaking, we don't.
Right.
But that's not how I feel. I feel that everyone that we're working with, whether they could be on the Remittor payroll, or they could be how other people may see them as vendors, I find all of them as co-founders. For me, that is how I value the relationship.
Right.
And I look at everyone as partners, and the way they have taken ownership of what they are responsible for. The sense of ownership, the accountability and everything, and the way they think that it has to be driven, there has to be method to madness, makes me feel as if I don't have a co-founder, I have so many co-founders.
Right.
Within the same setup.
And to kind of add to that, just going back to our initial conversations about marketing and whatnot as well, I actually believed in the product and the concept. Obviously, considering that, the founder was level-headed, like he had everything sort of mapped out. He had a vision, right? And I kind of aligned with that vision. It seemed like a very doable vision. In fact, every time we actually spoke, I came out feeling like you're undervaluing your vision, which is always a great sign for someone in the early stages of business, because if you can undervalue your vision and still be profitable and cash flow positive, then like there's obviously a long way to go for you in that sense, right? Most people, what I've kind of seen or experienced is if it's 100,000, sizable target audience, they try to embellish the numbers to make it look like 200,000, million. And that's not really the way to go about it. Like, keep the numbers real, try and expand if you can't expand vertically, try to expand horizontally, whatnot. And all of those pointers were, checked off very easily when we first started talking to each other. And then I remember at some point, members from your team were introduced into the conversation as well. And I could actually sense that passion coming from their side as well. It was never like, oh, the company wants to do this, or, there was never an I, me, the company. It was always a collective we.
Right.
We want to do this. We're trying to get this done. Like, we'd love to see this go here, go there. And that kind of, I'm very fortunate to say that about my team as well. Like, it's never a you or a me. We never pick things apart. It's always about us, we doing things together. And I know how hard it can be to actually bring all of these people together and get them to have a sense of, unity and align on a mission.
Yeah.
And I could see that since day one, which is why I had that push for you as well, that, okay, we can, we should be growing much faster than you're anticipating in year 1, year 2, whatnot. So kudos to you on that front, for sure. I have to agree with your many co-founder sentiment, for sure.
And the fact is that it's not a walk in the park every day. We do have disagreements.
Of course.
And then I feel that maybe as first among equals, There are days when I have to take a decision where everyone may or may not be on the same page, but that is okay. It does not matter, whether it's the idea is coming from me or not, or from anyone else.
Right.
And once you have that value-based system, decisions become easier. Chances are that people would come together, work towards making that decision into a reality, because they see that maybe their opinion was not the final agreed strategy, but it wasn't thrust upon them. It was a common consensus, or the most logical one has been agreed upon.
Right.
And so you have more buyers of those decisions, and people then go ahead and put in 110%. That has worked for Remittor so far.
And I think that's a great strategy to go by as well. It usually brings out the best for the company
Right.
versus best for a department or for an individual or for the founder. Now that we are on operations, speaking of operations, a lot of our listeners are either in the early stages of their business or the middle stages of their business from the data that I've seen. You're one of the only guests so far that actually has duality in their operations, in the sense that you have an offshore faction, and you obviously have the Canadian faction, the American faction that sort of collaborates with your offshore team. From an operations point of view, talk me through, and our listeners, through the challenges of this duality,
Yeah.
the coordination,
Right.
and the collaboration, and what it takes to run an organization across time zones.
I think the first thing that you end up learning is that you could be in any time zone, but chances are that you may take up the call and say good morning, because the other person could be in a very different time zone. Right. So I think I end up saying good morning 3 different times in a day. Right. So how my day works is that I start my day around 9 in the morning.
Okay.
My first, and I end up my day, my last call could be 3 in the morning.
Okay.
Right. And by the time I hit the bed, it could be 4 or 4:30 in the morning, and I wake up at around 8:30. And this has been very different from my previous life. I love sleeping, so it's not as if I've always been like this.
And how long has this prevailed for?
I do not prescribe it to anyone.
Okay.
Everyone keeps telling me this is not healthy, but I've been doing it for at least 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
2 years. For me, my Monday begins Sunday evening, because it's already Monday.
Correct.
This is the most fascinating thing about doing something that you really like. There are days when I get physically tired, but I'm never exhausted.
Right.
I'm never exhausted. I'm never like, oh, I need a vacation. In fact, although technically I have the freedom and the flexibility to take vacation whenever I want, the urge to take a vacation has gone down a lot.
Do you think that comes more so from your family, the urge to take vacations, as opposed to you?
Oh yes, my wife. The only thing she ever wants is she lives, I think, from one vacation to the next one.
Sure.
She's either planning one, or
She's just coming back from one, or she's in one. Yeah.
So, and for me, and this may sound very controversial, the thing that I don't like about a vacation is the journey.
Right. Okay.
I just don't like it. And thankfully, I'm based out of Vancouver. The city that it is, the urge to take, you never really feel that you need to go to another part of the world to, feel that you are vacationing.
Right.
I love the city. And whenever that I'm traveling and I'm on the road quite a bit, all that I want to do is take the first available flight back to Vancouver. Because there's family, and also I love the city. But then, working across time zones, it is challenging to begin with. But every call, every conversation that you have is so different from each other. You're not having the same conversations over and over again. The challenges, I would say, are the compliances and the regulations of different markets, and the kind of work that you do in that market.
Right.
In India, we have a lot of our channel partners like banks that we work with, the legal system. It's very groundwork, it's so we end up dealing with gazillion people, vendors, channel partners in India. And there are multiple projects happening simultaneously across different verticals. We have the money transfer vertical, we have the real estate vertical. And both are growing at a very healthy rate, and I feel that we're always short-staffed.
Right.
We are constantly hiring, and we are constantly behind the projection of the number of people that we need.
Right.
Hiring across geographies is a challenge.
Good problem to have, but still a problem.
Of course,
Yeah.
grateful to have this problem, but then the challenge I would say is that you can never have a uniform strategy for the markets that you're in. The lesser the markets that you are in geographically, the more contained you are, it's easier to have a uniform common strategy. What works in Canada may not work in US,
Right.
and it will most likely not
Work in the U. Yeah.
right. One thing that it teaches you is to be flexible, to not walk into any conversation with preconceived notions that this is the way it works because that is how we do it in another market. You need to be flexible. You need to accept that change is going to be an integral part of your business.
Right. And I think the more markets that you expand to, the steeper the learning curve for your marketing campaigns, your operational
Right.
procedures. Like there's only so much that you can carry forward from, I guess, one central sort of legal system and banking system
Right.
in India.
Right.
Right.
So our sales, marketing, and tech is based out of North America, while our operations are out of India. And the problems that we're trying to solve are more or less similar, regardless of where our customer is based.
Correct.
What they need is, when it comes to cross-border wealth transfer, the other end, may have different regulations, from each other. But I would say 70 to 75% of it can be similar. So that is one benefit of doing what we do or how we go about it. At the same time, you can't go into a market or even a conversation saying that this is how we do it and this is the only way we'll do it. We need to learn, and you need to be patient, and you need to be accepting that your way may not work.
Speaking of sales, marketing, and tech, I want to focus on the tech bit a little bit. And correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
but I feel like you guys operate as a consultancy.
Right.
A very streamlined consultancy with a very personalized approach. Your clients get a lot of one-on-one time with you personally as well. In fact, just the other day I was on the phone with a prospect and they were kind of vetting us as an agency. And at one point I was like, oh yeah, we have you heard of this brand called Remittor? We work with them. And the person on the other side was like, oh, are you the one making Sanu's ads? And we were like, okay, so he knows the brand and he knows the founder, which is awesome, right? That means like you're giving them the time of your day, or you are advocating for the fact that, you want to retain that quality of personalization in your
I
sales
feel that
process.
no matter what we do, no matter what business you're in, you will eventually, there'll always be someone who will do it for cheap.
Absolutely.
We don't want to be arrogant enough to say that we will do it at this rate, and if you don't want to, you can move on. If conversation do head that way, then it's unfortunate. But I also think that we may not have done things properly somewhere.
To justify the price point.
Right. So I feel that people should stay with us not just for our price points, but for knowing that they can trust us. In fact, I would say people ask us, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Is it a real estate? I would say, yes, we do solve it, but is that the biggest problem? No. Wealth transfer, is that the biggest problem? I would say no, because people are doing it with or without Remittor. Is it efficient enough? May or may not be. But it's still happening. So is that the biggest problem? No. I think the biggest problem that we're trying to solve is the lack of trust that people have, the trust deficit that people have when it comes to dealing with cross-border financial transactions when it comes to India. It's not just that as if NRIs have a lack of trust when it comes to financial institutions or service providers, but it's also at a personal level. Many times people don't trust their relatives. They don't know that whether their properties would be taken over by some relative or anyone. It could be anyone.
Correct.
That is the problem that we're trying to solve. So if you want to be seen as a trusted partner, then trust should not be measured by money.
Right.
Trust should be earned because of how deeply committed you are for the well-being of your customer.
And that being said, that's not your goal, but you're eventually, as it is, helping the client save
Of course.
quite a bit of money
Right.
from what I've heard
Right.
out in the public as well, right?
Money, saving money, we as Indians, we love it.
Yeah.
Right. But I was always sure that this can't be just about savings, because someone somewhere may tomorrow at least can claim that they can save more. I
Right.
don't know how, but if they do, should that be good enough reason for our customer to leave us and to go somewhere else? No, it should not be. So knowing your customers is very important. And I'll give you an example of that. Is that so I have this personal something that I do and I love it. Is that I love mango.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So we get mangoes imported from Alfonso, and I love Alfonso's, and for me, that's my love language.
Yeah.
So we get mangoes, Alfonso mangoes from Ratnagiri, shipped every year. But a client of ours, and we had already completed the project, right? I knew the husband doesn't like mangoes, but the wife really does. But there's a certain variety, and we only get Alfonso's from India. And I know that she loves mangoes, and we got them a box of Banganhali, from Karnataka, shipped to her. And I got a call from her. For the first 5 minutes, all she did was she kept crying. She was weeping because that box of mangoes brought so many memories
Right.
home, her childhood and all of it. And it was such an emotional conversation. Now, we had already done the work. We had already completed the project, and we didn't know whether they'll come back for anything else or whatever it is. But it wasn't about that.
Right.
And today I feel that customer is a dear friend. B, she doesn't leave an opportunity to talk about us.
Right.
Right.
It's an eternal referral.
Right. And the intention wasn't that.
Yeah.
I think that is a good example of brand loyalty.
Yeah. We're almost at time.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you two more questions before we wrap up. One is, we've talked about so much success. Right? What's one thing you failed at? Miserably failed at? It can be Remittor related, a strategy or something that you implemented at Remittor, or it could just be another venture as well. Because what I kind of understood from all of the entrepreneurs that I've spoken to is their most recent success is built on the back of like 4 or 5 terrible failures that not a lot of people actually talk to them about or hear about, right? So I want to know one of those from.
One thing that I did fail repeatedly, almost all my life, and now I've learned from it. There's one thing I would say, listening to my own voice. And maybe it's the social conditioning. It could also be the family. I was a younger one, the
Right.
youngest. So, you're expected to listen to people and do what you're told. And that is how our education system back in India was, or the jobs that I was in. I had learned not to listen to myself or to doubt myself. But I always felt that my thinking used to be pretty logical, or at least I believed so.
Sure.
But I would never follow through because I would let other voices dictate what I should be doing or what I shouldn't be doing. A lot of my failures in life came from that because I was doing what I was told and not what I believed in. With Remittor, I'm trying to undo a lot of those things.
Okay.
I'm trying to build an institution that I would have loved to work at. The people that we are hiring are the people that I would have wanted to work with.
Sure.
Many a times, in fact, we've hired people, and much later have I realized that I never went through their resume.
Resume or whatever. Yeah.
It is because of the conversation that I had, and I had a gut feeling that this would work. Would it work for everyone? No, it worked for me.
Sure.
Listening to myself, going for opportunities that I felt are better. You should talk to people. You should take their points. You should, if you think that if you have an history of taking the right calls, then you should eventually, at the end of the day, you should listen to what you think is right, rather than forcing another decision or another opinion because it is someone who may be successful in some other aspect of life.
And this is something that I've heard from other entrepreneurs as well. Like, it's quite reassuring actually. my final question,
Sure.
and this is because we have a lot of listeners who, as I mentioned, early stage, middle stage, right? If you were to take 3 strategies, and those were the only 3 strategies that you could implement in marketing or selling a product or service, what would those 3 strategies be?
Number one, talk to your customers for deciding what the product should be. Talk to the people whose problems you are trying to solve. So that is one.
Sure.
Second, make change your best friend.
Okay.
Don't be scared of it. Make it, as soon as you hear the word that something needs to be changed, be accepting of it. And an extension of that point is be careful of your emotions in front of your team and everything. Don't get, there are people who, they get anxious very early, very soon, at a drop of a hat. Your team picks up, from those aspects. And it is important that you don't get flustered for, every time things don't go according to your plan. Your plan is as good as as you want it to be, but things can go and will go beyond that. And a marketing initiative, from a marketing perspective, I feel digital marketing does help, right? It helps you reach out to customers who you may not have the physical connect with, but do not forget to personally, physically meet people or talk to
Direct
people.
marketing.
Pick up the phone and talk to people, reach out to your customers. I feel at times what happens is that a lot of the businesses feel that, let's say a campaign has gone live, now we'll sit back and wait for the customer to find us and reach out to us. And many a times, even if you have a great product or a solution, the wait can be killing. And the wait can cost you dollars. While that is happening, you should also think of how can you reach out to them.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for having this chat with us, Sanu. I'm pretty sure that our listeners are going to love it. And I almost feel like there's so much room for a second episode with you as well. So hopefully we can make that happen at some point.
Absolutely.
But again, thank you for taking the time. And this was, I really enjoyed it.
On a complete pleasure. And also thank you for playing such a pivotal role in what Remittor is today and what it will be tomorrow. And thank you for your team.
Thank you so much. I hope we can continue the partnership and take it to a whole new level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cheers.